We thought we had found the perfect warrior race in humans. When the Galactic Coalition first discovered humans, we thought we had found the perfect warrior race. As a member of the Marnak species, I had seen countless species rise and fall on the battlefield. My people, the Marnak, had long been one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, strong, disciplined, and relentless in war. We had dominated the galaxy's military landscape for millennia. Yet over time, we realized that we needed allies who could complement our strengths with new perspectives and untapped potential. That's when we found humanity. They were primitive by galactic standards, still bound to their fragile blue planet called Earth. Their technology was centuries behind the Coalition's advanced systems, but we saw something in them that intrigued us, a spark of adaptability and ingenuity. Most importantly, they had a history steeped in conflict, warfare, and survival. From the first moment our anthropological team studied their historical archives, we knew we had uncovered a species that had been forged in the fires of conflict. The Coalition Council convened to discuss the possibility of bringing humans into our ranks. There was debate, of course. Many species doubted that such a young and inexperienced race could be trusted with the mantle of warriors. But others, like myself, saw their potential. Humans were unlike any species we had encountered before. Their capacity for violence was matched only by their creativity, and they displayed a fierce loyalty to one another in times of crisis. They were survivors, and in a galaxy constantly at war with itself, that trait alone made them valuable. We extended the invitation to humanity, and to our delight, they accepted. They joined the coalition, and we immediately began integrating them into our military forces. I, Commander Vrish of the Marnak, was assigned to oversee the 1st Battalion of human soldiers in a real combat scenario. It was an honor, though I initially doubted whether they could handle the brutal, calculated warfare that the coalition had perfected. After all, our enemies were not simple barbarians. They were highly advanced, cunning, and merciless. They had torn through some of the best soldiers the galaxy had ever seen. Still, I had to admit, there was something about these humans that intrigued me. They weren't the largest or the strongest species, but they had something that other races lacked, a relentless, almost reckless determination to win, no matter the cost. The first deployment. Our first mission together was on a barren, windswept moon near the edges of Coalition territory. The Vraks, a highly aggressive insectoid species, had taken control of a strategic outpost, and it was our job to reclaim it. The Vraks were notorious for their hive mind coordination and overwhelming numbers. They had defeated many coalition forces in the past through sheer attrition. I gathered the human soldiers in the deployment bay for a briefing. They were a mix of men and women, each wearing their standard combat armor and carrying weapons that, by Marnak standards, seemed rudimentary. Yet, they exuded an air of confidence that unsettled me. They didn't seem intimidated by the task ahead, despite knowing the odds were stacked against us. I explained the situation, detailing the Vraks' strategy and how we would counter their attacks with precision strikes. I expected the humans to ask tactical questions, to raise concerns about the complexity of the mission. Instead, one of them, a young officer named Lieutenant Diaz, grinned and said, "Sounds like a good time. Let's show these bugs what humans can do." The others laughed and nodded, some even fist-bumping each other. I was shocked by their lack of apprehension. These were hardened killers we were going up against, not some disorganized rabble. Didn't they realize how dangerous this was? But then I saw it in their eyes. The thrill. They wanted this. Humans, it seemed, had a love for battle that I hadn't seen before. It wasn't just a duty to them. It was almost a game. We launched the assault at dawn. The battle begins. As expected, the Vraks swarmed us almost immediately. They attacked in waves, their sharp mandibles clicking as they charged toward our position. Our coalition forces fought bravely, but it quickly became clear that the Vraks outnumbered us at least 3-1. But the humans, they were something else entirely. Instead of falling back or retreating to more defensible positions, they charged forward. They moved in tight, coordinated squads using guerrilla tactics that baffled the Vraks. They fought like demons, fast, brutal, and with an uncanny ability to exploit weaknesses in the Vraks' formations. Lieutenant Diaz led his squad into the heart of the enemy lines, cutting down Vrak's soldiers with precision shots in close quarters combat. At one point, I saw him use a discarded piece of debris as an improvised weapon, bashing a Vrak's warrior over the head with it before delivering a killing blow. The other humans followed suit, turning the battlefield into chaos as they improvised, adapted, and pushed forward relentlessly. The Vraks had never encountered anything like it. They were used to enemies who fought with predictable strategies, with careful calculations. But the humans fought with ferocity and unpredictability. They didn't just rely on their weapons. They used their environment, their wits, and even the bodies of fallen enemies as tools in their arsenal. As the battle raged on, something remarkable happened. The humans started to win. They drove the Vraks back, inch by inch, using tactics that were as daring as they were insane. At one point, a human soldier, cut off from his squad, rigged an entire section of the outpost's walls with explosives, and brought down a swarm of Vraks with a single, devastating blast. He barely made it out alive, but when he did, he was laughing. I watched in disbelief as the tide of battle turned in our favor. The humans fought as though they had nothing to lose, as though the only thing that mattered was victory. Their losses were heavy, but they didn't seem to care. They pushed harder, fought fiercer, and refused to give up, even when the situation looked hopeless. In the end, we won. The Vraks retreated, their forces decimated by the humans' relentless assault. The outpost was ours. Aftermath. When the battle was over, I walked among the human soldiers, expecting to see exhaustion, grief for their fallen comrades, or at least a moment of reflection. Instead, I saw celebration. They were slapping each other on the back, sharing stories of the fight, and laughing like they had just returned from a festival. Lieutenant Diaz saw me watching and walked over, a broad grin on his face. "Hell of a fight, right, Commander?" he said, clearly exhilarated. I stared at him for a long moment, trying to understand what I had just witnessed. "You lost many soldiers," I said quietly. "Doesn't that trouble you?" Diaz shrugged, his grin not fading. "That's war. We fight, we win, we lose some. But we came out on top. That's what matters." His words struck me in a way I hadn't expected. The Marnak were disciplined and strategic, but we valued every life we lost on the battlefield. It was ingrained in us to fight efficiently, with minimal casualties. Yet these humans, they saw war as an inevitability and death as just another part of it. The truth about humanity. Over the next few years, I continued to serve alongside humans in various campaigns. I watched as they adapted to every battlefield, every enemy, with a level of ingenuity and tenacity that was unmatched. They weren't just warriors, they were survivors. They didn't fight for glory or honor, but for the sheer challenge of it, and it made them terrifying. But there was another side to humanity that I hadn't seen at first, something that made them truly unique. In between battles, I saw them mourn their losses. I saw them comfort their wounded, sit in silence for their dead, and care deeply for their comrades. It wasn't that they didn't value life. They valued it more than any species I had ever known. But their ability to compartmentalize that grief, to push through it and continue fighting, was what made them so dangerous. They could endure anything, suffer any loss, and still keep going. We thought we had found the perfect warrior race in humans, and in many ways we were right. But they were more than warriors. They were survivors, innovators, and above all, they were driven by something no other species could fully understand. In the end, it wasn't their capacity for violence that made them formidable. It was their capacity for hope. Even in the darkest of times, even when the odds were stacked against them, humans believed they could win, and more often than not, they did.